Let's return now to Nabila Ramdani, who's a Middle East expert who's been leading us through this story over the past few days on 5 Live. Hi, Nabila.
Oh, hello.
What do you make of the situation we're seeing in Tripoli now? Because it's changed quite a lot since we last spoke a couple of hours ago.
Oh, absolutely. And you were comparing the situation with Iraq, and as it happens, Colonel Gaddafi has just made an audio message on state television, which was broadcast on state television, comparing Tripoli to the city of Baghdad and saying that he was in danger and that the Libyans have to save the city. So it's a desperate, message from Colonel Gaddafi, and it's very much. He sounds like it's we're approaching the end game effectively.
Right. It puts paid to rumours and gossip that are doing the rounds on the internet that Gaddafi may no longer be alive himself. If he's responding to events, then he certainly is. Although we don't know where he is.
Well, absolutely. That's all sorts of claims are circulating at the moment. We've also heard a few minutes ago that there are claims that Colonel Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, has been captured by rebel forces, and this has been confirmed by the UK branch of the National Transitional Council. I think what emerges is that it's a very confusing night. And the rebel forces are very publicity aware, and if indeed Saif al-Islam had been captured, surely I think they would be showing pictures of him captured or in handcuffs. And perhaps we should put that in the context of the Arab Spring. Let's not forget that the rebellion in Libya very much started with the Arab Spring, and it's very much part of it. And what's also part of the Arab Spring is allowing the media to spread democracy in the Arab world. And as such, I think it's important, it's even essential to have footage and picture confirming everything that's being put out.
I mean, is it fair to say that the apparent ease from what we can tell, looking at the pictures and hearing the accounts coming out of Libya tonight, the apparent ease with which the rebels have marched into Tripoli and been welcomed with open arms has really caught everyone by surprise? No one expected it to be this easy for them.
Well, very much so. It's absolutely staggering after all the propaganda we've been hearing from the Gaddafi regime, saying, and they're still sending this message. We've heard a few minutes ago his spokesman, Musa Ibrahim, saying that the Libyan loyalists to Gaddafi were still prepared to fight till the end, but nothing seems to be happening. There is no resistance from the Gaddafi regime, it seems, so far, and there are already scenes of celebrations across Tripoli and across Libya, and it seems that the game is over for Gaddafi, and yet it's not quite over. So that's why it's such a disturbing night in many, many ways.
A lot of people very keen to tell me on 5 Live tonight that it's not going to be a problem for the National Transitional Council to take over. There's not going to be any great disagreement about how the country should be run in future. I mean, that would be amazing, especially by comparison to other countries in the region where this sort of thing has happened. Do you go along with that?
I think the takeover by the National Transitional Council will actually prove rather difficult. And I think the big danger that Libya is facing in the future is the type of civil war between various factions, perhaps more like a scenario like Somalia, I would say, because you cannot go through a conflict without building up grievances, a desire for revenge. There are already rivalries, even on the side of the people fighting Gaddafi. There are already disputes over oil resources and the resources of the country in general. And there are already people who say that we fought more against Gaddafi and therefore we should be in charge of the country. So there are deeply entrenched tribal rivalry, but also regional rivalries, because after all, Libya is a relatively recent creation and it's not necessarily a natural unit. So there's even a danger that it should not remain a simple entity.
What do you think NATO's role will be, could be, from here on in? I mean, they've certainly smooth the way for the rebels to get to this point, what do they do next?
Well, to say the least, not only they did that, but they effectively committed itself to lead the rebels to outright victory, and by offering all sorts of logistical, tactical support all along, an open check to the rebels, the political recognition of the National Transitional Council. So it was very clear that behind the UN Resolution 1973, the end game was very much regime change. Having said that, and even now, when it's approaching a situation where Gaddafi will fall, if not tonight, in the next few days or few weeks, it seems pretty inevitable. I think the outlook for NATO is not very easy, because in some ways the situation after 6 months of bitter fighting with all sorts of rivalries and scores to settle, it means that perhaps NATO will have to go on the ground and not just be bombing safely from the air. And this is, of course, a huge problem for the governments in Europe, and especially France and Britain. A huge problem to consider in this conflict.
We've had enough sort of intellectual gymnastics required to do what they've done so far and say, yes, and we're still within the bounds of the Resolution 1973. So maybe they would need further UN backing to be able to go in on the ground. Maybe people here and people in France and people in other countries involved just wouldn't wear it. I mean, that's the sort of reaction I'm getting from listeners on Twitter and on the text so far tonight on 5 Live, is we shouldn't be there, we shouldn't be involved.
Well, it seems pretty staggering, with hindsight, that what started off as a minor rebellion, let's not lose sight of that, in Tripoli, in Benghazi, for all the right reasons, for very legitimate reasons. We're talking about a despot who's been ruling Libya in a very ruthless manner for over 40 years.
Sure. Nabila, I'm really grateful for you joining us tonight. Maybe we'll chat later. Thank you very much indeed for now.
Thanks a lot.
Nabila Ramdani, who's a Middle East and North Africa expert, live with us on 5 Live.